Good afternoon and welcome back to another episode of The Longing, where we are once again, you guessed it, going to be reading more of Moby Dick. Oops. So, let's get on with it. Moby Dick. Chapter 81. The Pequod Meets the Virgin. The predestinated day arrived, and we duly met the ship Jungfrau, Derek Didier, Master of Bremen. At one time the greatest whaling people in the world. The Dutch and Germans are now among the least, but here and there, at very wide intervals of latitude and longitude, you still occasionally meet with their flag in the Pacific. For some reason the Jungfrau seemed quite eager to pay her respects. While yet some distance from the Pequod, she rounded to, and dropping a boat, her captain was impelled towards us, impatiently standing in the bows instead of the stern. What has he in his hand there?" cried Starbuck, pointing to something wavingly held by the German. "Impossible. A lamp feeder." "Not that," said Stubb. No, it's a coffee pot, Mr. Starbuck. He's coming off to make us our coffee." "Is the Yarman? Don't you see that big tin can alongside of him? That's his boiling water." "Oh, he's all right, is the Yarman." "Go along with you," cried Flask. "It's a lamp feeder and an oil can. He's out of oil and has come a-begging." However curious it may seem for an oil ship to be borrowing oil on the whale ground, and however much it may invertedly contradict the old proverb about carrying coals to Newcastle, yet sometimes such a thing really happens, and in the present case Captain Derek Didier did indubitably conduct a lamp feeder as Flask did declare. As he mounted the deck, Ahab abruptly accosted him, without at all heeding what he had in his hand, but in his broken lingo the German soon evinced his complete ignorance of the white whale, immediately turning the conversation to his lamp feeder and oil can, with some remarks touching his having to turn into his hammock at night in profound darkness, his last drop of Bremen oil being gone, and not a single flying fish yet captured to supply the deficiency, concluding by hinting that his ship was indeed what in the fishery is technically called a clean one, that is, an empty one. Well deserving the name of Jungfrau or the Virgin. His necessities supplied, Derek departed, but he had not gained his ship's side, when whales were almost simultaneously raised from the mastheads of both vessels, and so eager for the chase was Derek, that without pausing to pull his oil can and lamp feeder aboard, he slewed around his boat, and made after the Leviathan lamp feeders. Now the game having risen to leeward, he and the other 3 German boats that soon followed him had considerably the start of the Pequod's keels. There were 8 whales, an average pod. Aware of their danger, they were going all abreast with great speed, straight before the wind, rubbing their flanks as closely as so many spans of horses in harness. They left a great wide wake, as though continually unrolling a great white parchment upon the sea. Full in this rapid wake, and many fathoms in the rear, swam a huge humped old bull, which by his comparatively slow progress, as well as by the unusual yellowish incrustations overgrowing him, seemed afflicted with a jaundice, or some other infirmity. Whether this whale belonged to the pod in advance seemed questionable, for it is not customary for such venerable leviathans to be at all social. Nevertheless, he stuck to their wake, though indeed their backwater must have retarded him, because the white bone or swell at his broad muzzle was a dashed one, like the swell formed when 2 hostile currents meet. His spout was short, slow, and laborious, coming forth with a choking sort of gush, and spending itself in torn shreds, followed by strange subterranean commotions in him, which seemed to have egress at his other buried extremity, causing the waters behind him to up-bubble. "Who's got some paregoric?" said Stubb. "He has the stomach-ache, I'm afraid. Lord, think of having half an acre of stomach-ache. Adverse winds are holding mad Christmas in him, boys. It's the first foul wind I ever knew to blow from astern. But look, Did ever whale yaw so before? It must be he's lost his tiller. As an overladen Indiaman bearing down the Hindostan coast with a deckload of frightened horses careens, berries, rolls and wallows on her way, so did this old whale heave his aged bulk, and now and then, partly turning over on his cumbrous rib ends, expose the cause of his devious wake in the unnatural stump of his starboard fin. Whether he had lost that fin in battle, or had been born without it, it were hard to say. "Only wait a bit, old chap, and I'll give ye a sling for that wounded arm," cried cruel Flask, pointing to the whale line near him. "Mind he don't sling thee with it," cried Starbuck. "Give way, or the German will have him." With one intent, all the combined rival boats were pointed for this one fish, because not only was he the largest, and therefore the most valuable whale, but he was nearest to them, and the other whales were going with such great velocity, moreover, as to almost defy pursuit for the time. At this juncture the Pequod's keels had shot by the 3 German boats last lowered, but from the great start he had had, Derrick's boat still led the chase, though every moment neared by his foreign rivals. The only thing they feared was that, from being already so nigh to his mark, he would be enabled to dart from his iron before they could completely overtake and pass him. As for Derrick, he seemed quite confident that this would be the case, and occasionally with a deriding gesture shook his lamp feeder at the other boats. "The ungracious and ungrateful dog," cried Starbuck. "He mocks and dares me with the very poor box I filled for him, not 5 minutes ago." Then in his old intense whisper, "Give way, greyhounds, dog to it." "I tell you what it is, men," cried Stubb to his crew. "It's against my religion to get mad, but I'd like to eat that villainous Yarman. Pull, won't ye? Are ye going to let that rascal beat ye? Do ye love brandy? A hogshead of brandy, then, to the best man. Come, why don't some of ye burst a blood vessel? Who's that been dropping an anchor overboard? We won't budge an inch, we're becalmed. Halloo! Here's grass growing in the boat's bottom, and by the Lord, the mast there's budding. This won't do, boys. Look at that Yarman. The short and long of it is, men, will you spit fire or not?" "Oh, see the suds he makes," cried Flask, dancing up and down. "What a hump! Oh, do pile on the beef. Lays like a log. Oh, my lads, do spring. Slapjacks and quahogs for supper. You know, my lads, baked clams and muffins. Oh, do spring. He's 100-barreler. Don't lose him now. Don't, oh, don't. See that Yarman? Oh, won't ye pull for your duff, my lads? Such a sog. Such a sogger. Don't you love sperm? There goes $3,000, men. A bank. A whole bank. The Bank of England. Oh, do. What's that Yarman about now?" At this moment Derrick was in the act of pitching his lamp feeder at the advancing boats, and also his oil can, perhaps with the double view of retarding his rival's way, and at the same time economically accelerating his own by the momentary impetus of the backwards toss. "The unmannerly Dutch dogger," cried Stubb. "Pull now, men, like 50,000 line of battleship, loads of red-haired devils. What do you say, Tashtego? Are you the man to snap your spine in 2 and 20 pieces for the honour of old Gayhead? What do you say?" "I say pull like goddamn," cried the Indian. Fiercely but evenly incited by the taunts of the German, the Pequod's 3 boats now began ranging almost abreast, and, so disposed, momentarily neared him, in that fine, loose, chivalrous attitude of the headsman when drawing near to his prey. The 3 mates stood up proudly, occasionally backing the after oarsman with an exhilarating cry of, "There she slides now. Hurrah for the white ash breeze. Down with the Yarman. Sail over him." But so decided an original start had Derrick had, that spite of all their gallantry he would have proved the victor in this race, had not a righteous judgment descended upon him in a crab, which caught the blade of his midship oarsman, while this clumsy lubber was striving to free his white ash, and while, in consequence, Derrick's boat was nigh to capsizing, and he thundering away at his men in a mighty rage. that it was a good time for Starbuck, Stubb, and Flask. With a shout they took a mortal start forwards, and slantingly ranged up on the German's quarter. An instant more and all four boats were diagonically in the whale's immediate wake, while stretching from them on both sides was the foaming swell that he made. It was a terrific, most pitiable and maddening sight. The whale was now going head out and sending his spout before him in a continual tormented jet, while his one porfin beat his side in agony or fright. Now to this hand, now to that. He yawed in his faltering flight, and still at every billow that he broke, he spasmodically sank in the sea, or sideways rolled towards the sky, his once beating fin. So have I seen a bird with clipped wing, making affrighted broken circles in the air, vainly striving to escape the piratical hawks. But the bird has a voice, and with plaintive cries will make known her fear. But the fear of this vast dumb brute of the sea was chained up and enchanted in him. He had no voice save that choking respiration through his spiracle, and this made the sight of him unspeakably pitiable. While still, in his amazing bulk, portcullis jaw, and omnipotent tail, there was enough to appall the stoutest man who's so pitied. And with that, we're going to leave the episode there and return to this chapter tomorrow. So I'm going to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.